Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action. One step forward, three steps back. Now this week, you all know that we gave here on Unbossed the Supreme Court some credit about redistricting matters. And unfortunately, we knew it was just a matter of time before this court went back to its true form. This headline right here explains it all. Supreme Court strikes down college affirmative action programs. The ruling is the culmination of a decades-long effort to end the consideration of race in admissions. The Supreme Court, and we're gonna unpack this a little bit, and Dan and I, we're gonna talk about this, so let's unpack it through the lens of the media, what was written about it. The Supreme Court on Thursday struck down affirmative action programs at the University of North Carolina and Harvard in a major victory for conservative activists, ending the systematic consideration of race in the admissions process. The court ruled that both programs violate the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution and are therefore unlawful. The vote was 6-3 in the UNC case and 6-2 in the Harvard case, in which liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was recused. The decision was hailed, and no surprise here, the decision was hailed by prominent conservatives who say the Constitution should be, quote, colorblind, end quote, with former President Donald Trump calling the ruling a great day for America. Now, the conservatives who put this up, and put Dan up, Dan, I'm just ready to have a conversation here. I've been unsettled all day. I'm unsettled even right now to this moment, but I wanna kind of unpack some of what I just read here based on the reporting. So the conservatives who have been fighting for this for decades, which means that liberals should have foreseen this coming. You know, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. That's me. Systematic consideration of race has been in this country. I mean, the nerve and the gall, the pure unadulterated nerve and gall to say that systematic, that they don't want things about race to be considered the systematic. It's been systematically and systemically, this country's always considered race. And it's been the race of wealthy ass white men, affirmative action for them for the longest time. And then they broadened out the definition of what it meant to be white. The court also ruled that these programs violate the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution. Really? They just not coming to that conclusion? What about the equal protections of Black Americans in this country for decades after decades? Affirmative action for white people has been, Dan, not just my opinion, we got receipts, has been the modus operandi in this country since it was founded. And now all of a sudden, they think they have religion. They want a colorblind society. You and I would love to be able to say that this was a colorblind society, that Black people were not judged because they were Black, and then other marginalized communities, other ethnic and racial groups, but that is not the fact. If we think about de facto and de jure, you know, what happens in reality and what happens in law, there is a conflict there between the two and the lived experiences. And I'm using Black people, I am centering Black people in this because all other ethnic and racial minorities derive the opportunities that they have received in this country off of the backs of Black people.
There's so many excellent points there. And I think one thing we'll get to in a moment, but to also center is that the Democratic Party, if they're any kind of institution worth their size and worth their muster, then they would have a way to fight back against this decades-long Republican attack against affirmative action. Whether it's reframing it and lying about it to the point where people actually don't realize that white women benefit from affirmative action a lot. People actually don't realize that within the Asian American population, Asian American and Pacific Islander, you're talking about dozens and dozens of countries. There's some folks overrepresented in that. There are a lot of groups underrepresented in that. And so for Asian American and Pacific Islander folks who have, like Black Americans, like a lot of other Americans in this country, have been hit by socioeconomic inequalities and things that are constantly keeping these groups down, such as a party trying to make sure that their access to higher education and opportunities to get outside of that struggle are constantly beaten down. There has to be consideration for that. But no, this is like you're saying here, a lot of these covers, a lot of this to just say, let's put down black people, let's put down minorities, let's put down as many people as we can and get rid of their college opportunities because of some perception that equality is an attack on them. And it's wrong. And the fact that we even have to fight on these grounds shows how much ground the Democratic Party has lost.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, as I taught African American history for many years at Cuyahoga Community College, and we talked, teaching my students about the civil rights movement and the dynamics of that movement, about what happened in the 40s and the 50s, and then the culmination of it in the 60s, and what happened even before that. And to think that was something I taught about because I read about it. I didn't live it. And now in real time, multiple generations from X to millennials to Zs are living through times that we thought were already taken care of. Your point about Asian American students, and I got to shout out Francesca Hong on this. She put out a tweet and it says, note, Asian American students were used out of convenience to maintain power structures of oppression. Our communities must speak out against being pit against one another to uphold white supremacy. So your point is not lost on some of our Asian and Pacific Islander sisters and brothers. And Francesca, she always brings the thunder, the lightning, and the rain. Where are these other groups in standing up for this? Because they come for black people, they coming for all people. And then Eli Mistal, the journalist, writer, has a wonderful book out. He even wrote an article in the Nation magazine, which I encourage people to read. But he tweeted, the Supreme Court ended affirmative action. The how of it is not very interesting. They killed it because they could. Let's rest right there. They did it, sheer power grab, because they could, and they've been working decades to get to this point. What are Democrats? Democrats don't play the long game. They play the short game. Republicans play the long game. They did it because they could. He goes on to say, but why? Well, because affirmative action was the only policy where the whiteness card got revoked. Hello, drop the mic on that. Affirmative action was the only place where the white card, for the most part, got dropped, except for, as Dan laid out, white women were the biggest beneficiaries of it, and Olay lays it down very strongly. Now, so Justice Ketanji Brown weighed in on this. She gave a strong, and I mean strong, take it to the hole, in their face, drop the mic, dissent. A dissenting opinion against what the majority did. A tragedy for us all is this headline. Supreme Court Justice Jackson blasts the majority's affirmative action ruling. Now she goes on in her opinion, and we're just taking a sneak preview of it. I encourage everyone to go in and read it for yourself. With them let eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces color blindness for all. By legal fiat, Jackson wrote in a thundering dissent to the majority court ruling Thursday. She goes on, but deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. History speaks in some form. It can be heard forever. The race-based gaps that first developed centuries ago are echoes from the past that still exist today. By all accounts, they are still stark. There it is. That's it. I mean, that is really the summation of the justice's dissent. It does not make it real. De jure and de facto, what is done in practice, what is done in law. And there are countless black people still walking the face of the earth who can tell you, because they lived through it, or they heard stories about their parents living through it, the difference between somebody changing a law and what actually happens in practice. And history does speak. If we think about the Reconstruction period, when the feds pulled out of the South, all of those laws, the 13th, the 14th, and 15th amendments to the Constitution, yeah, they were out there, but they were not enforced because the same people who had full control in that moment retook control after the federal troops pulled out. We can name countless examples of that. This is a painful day. Dan, one of my close colleagues of mine, and she teaches history as well. She said, people are saying that this set us back 50 years. She believes it sets us back to the Douglas Washington debates. That in fact, and this is a great point, this ain't gonna just stop at education.
No,
this is gonna reverberate through all pillars of society, just like Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896.
I think that's a strong point. It's reverberating through a lot of aspects of society because, like we said, it's a conservative project to delegitimize centers of education, call them these things like woke, or say that they're misguided and they're indoctrinating the youth, say that they're not serving students properly, and that these actual educational students are the reasoning behind poverty, and that's why people are graduating from schools out of work, as opposed to looking at the material conditions that are causing so much money to rise at the top. Meanwhile, productivity at the bottom is higher than it ever should have and has ever been before. So it would make the most sense that we're all benefiting from that, all of us, especially to raise up the wrongs that have been done historically. But no, by attacking this through the courts, through the legislature, through the media, all of this is a deliberate approach to go against so much progress that we tried to fight against. And to the point of your history teacher friend, they're fighting against even teaching that history. So yeah, I think it goes back even further, because to come back and to make progress, you need to know where people came from, what mistakes they made, what successes they made. And it's harder and harder to get that information even today.
Yeah, it really is. Excellent points. And you know what? The president needs to expand the court, period. This is not unprecedented. Yesterday, right? It has been done before. So for all the people who, the brunch bunch who saying that it cannot be done, we already know what the conservatives are gonna say. This is not radical. It has been done, and there is nothing fixed that says that the court's configuration has to stay the way that it is. The president of the United States should call upon Congress, instead of standing up there giving us platitudes, acting like he's powerless. Do something, Mr. President. For what? Do something. He is not helpless. He is the most powerful man in the free flipping world. I mean, hell, if he's powerless and all the folks that gonna come, oh, you being unfair, you being too harsh, there's nothing he can do. Damn it, we got higher expectations of toddlers than we do of the president of the United States of America, or at least I do for my toddlers, than a lot of these brunch bunch folks do for the president of the United States of America and the Democratic Congress. They control the United States Senate. Expand the court. Get rid of the filibuster. Stop playing games and acting like you don't have no power. Hell, if you ain't got no power, then leave. Don't even run again. If you this powerless,